My twins accidentally called their biological millionaire dad when I collapsed. The problem is he refused to help. The phone was ringing. My 7-year-old daughter had pressed the call button while I lay unconscious on my kitchen floor, possibly dying. And when the man who fathered my children finally answered, this is what he said. Hello, who is this? Hi, are you the emergency person? My mama fell down and she will not get up. And my brother says we should call someone and you were in her phone and I am really scared and please help us. I do not know any Vivian. I think you have the wrong number, but you are in her phone. It says you are the emergency person. Please. My mama is on the floor and she is not moving and I do not know what to do. Listen, kid, I do not know who you are or what kind of scam this is, but I am in the middle of a board meeting. Do not call this number again. And then he hung up. The billionaire father of my twins. The man whose contact I had kept in my phone for 7 years just in case of emergency. He heard his own daughter crying and begging for help, and he told her it was a scam and disconnected the call. That moment changed everything. Not just for me, not just for my children, but for the man who would eventually discover exactly what he had done and who he had dismissed. This is the story of what happens when secrets buried for 7 years explode into the light. When the person you protected your children from becomes impossible to avoid, and when the truth turns out to be nothing like what anyone believed. But I am getting ahead of myself. Let me take you back to the moment when my world collapsed. Literally, the kitchen floor was cold against my cheek. That was the first thing I registered when consciousness began slipping away from me. The unforgiving tile pressing into my face, the sharp chill seeping through my cotton blouse, the smell of the dinner I had been cooking starting to burn on the stove. And cutting through all of it like a knife through silence were the screams of my children. Mama, Mama, wake up. Please wake up. Sebastian's face appeared above me, blurred and trembling. At 7 years old, my son had already learned to mask fear with composure. It was a survival skill he had inherited from, watching me navigate a world that had given us very little. But in that moment, his composure was crumbling. His dark eyes were wide with a terror that no child should ever know. His glasses were crooked on his face, and his small hands were shaking as he tried to figure out what to do. I am calling someone. Rosalie's voice came from somewhere beyond my field of vision. My daughter. My fierce, beautiful daughter who never let anything stop her. Her voice shook, but there was determination in it. The same determination that had carried me through 7 years of single motherhood, 3 career changes, and the slow, brutal work of building something from absolutely nothing. No baby. I tried to say, but the words came out as barely a whisper. The room was spinning. My heart was racing, then stumbling, then racing again. I had been ignoring the warning signs for weeks. The dizziness that came out of nowhere. The exhaustion that went beyond tired. The chest pains I had attributed to stress because stopping was not an option. Because my children needed me. Because no one else was coming to save us. I do not remember the number. Rosalie's voice cracked with panic. Mama, what is the number for help? 911. I managed to get the words out, but my daughter had already grabbed my phone from the counter. The phone with contacts and history and secrets I had buried so deep I had almost forgotten they existed. Who is this person? Rosalie asked. Her small fingers were navigating the screen with the digital fluency of her generation. It says, ICE with a name. Is that a doctor? My blood ran cold. Colder than the tile beneath me. I knew exactly what contact she had found. I tried to sit up, tried to reach for the phone, but my body had completely abandoned me. Do not. I gasped, but Rosalie had already pressed the call button. The phone rang once, twice, 3 times. Each ring felt like an eternity. Each ring brought us closer to a collision I had spent 7 years avoiding. Then a voice answered, deep, measured, unmistakable, even after all this time. Hello. Hi, Rosalie said, her voice small but brave. Are you the emergency person? My mama fell down and she will not get up, and my brother says we should call someone and you were in her phone and I am really scared. Who is this? The voice on the other end sharpened with confusion and something that sounded like annoyance. I am Rosalie. I am 7. My mama's name is Vivian and she is on the floor and I am scared and please can you help us? And then came the words that would haunt me. That would haunt my daughter. That would eventually haunt the man who spoke them. I do not know any Vivian. I think you have the wrong number, But you are in her phone. It says you are the emergency. Listen, kid. I do not know who you are or what kind of scam this is, but I do not have time for this. I am in the middle of a board meeting. Do not call this number again." The line went dead. Rosalie stared at the phone in her hand. Tears were spilling down her cheeks. Her whole body was trembling, and when she spoke, the words came out in a whisper that broke something inside me. He hung up on me. Mama, the emergency man, hung up on me. Sebastian appeared beside his sister. His face had gone from scared to furious. He put his arm around Rosalie and turned his back on the phone like it was an enemy that had just attacked them. "Forget him," Sebastian said with a certainty that sounded far too old for 7 years. "We do not need him. We will call Aunt Tessa instead." He took the phone from his sister's shaking hands and found Tessa's number. And as my consciousness faded in and out, I heard him speaking calmly to my best friend, telling her what happened, giving her our address, being the man of the house because the actual man had just proven he was never worth anything at all. The last thing I remember before everything went dark was the sound of sirens in the distance, and my daughter's voice repeating over and over again like a wound that would not stop bleeding. He hung up on me. He said it was a scam. He hung up on me. Let me tell you about the man who hung up on my daughter. Let me tell you about Nathaniel Drake and the love story that became a horror story that became 7 years of silence. I met him when I was 25 years old. I was an interior designer just starting to make a name for myself in Atlanta, working 80-hour weeks, taking any client who would have me, dreaming bigger than my circumstances but too stubborn to let reality shrink my ambitions. There was a gallery opening, one of those events where the art is secondary to the networking and the wine flows freely because that is how deals get made. I was there because a client had invited me, hoping I would help her redesign her living room to match a painting she was planning to purchase. I was standing in front of an abstract piece, trying to figure out what colors I could pull from it for my client's space. Then a voice came from beside me. "You look like you are actually thinking about the art. That makes you one of maybe 3 people in this room who came here for the paintings instead of the free champagne." I turned, and there he was, Nathaniel Drake, tall and dark-haired with the kind of presence that made everything around him seem slightly less important. He was wearing a suit that probably cost more than my monthly rent, but his smile was warm, genuine, not the polished performance I had learned to expect from wealthy men. "I am trying to figure out if this piece would look good in a living room or if it needs more space to breathe." I told him, professional, keeping my focus on work because that was safer than noticing how attractive he was. He looked at the painting for a long moment. Then he looked at me with those intense dark eyes. "It needs space," he said, "something with high ceilings and natural light. Put it in a regular living room and it will overwhelm everything. The colors are too demanding." He was right. I had been thinking the same thing, and the fact that he understood that he could look at a piece of art and think about how it would exist in a real space. It surprised me. We talked for 2 hours that night about art and architecture and the way spaces shape the people who live in them. He told me about his company, a tech empire he had built from an idea he had in college. I told him about my business, the clients who trusted me and the ones who did not listen, and the dream I had of one day designing spaces that changed how people felt about their lives. When the gallery started closing down, he asked for my number. I gave it to him without hesitation, and when he called the next day, I answered without pretending to be busy. That was my first mistake. Not playing games, not protecting myself, just being honest about the fact that I liked him and wanted to see where this could go. We dated for 3 months before I moved into his apartment, a beautiful space in a high-rise building with views of the city that made me feel like we were living above the world instead of in it. He was everything I had not known I was looking for. Intelligent, attentive, interested in my work. He asked questions and remembered the answers. He showed up when he said he would. He made me feel seen in a way no one ever had before. His world was different from mine. Old money, family expectations, a mother who controlled everything with an iron fist disguised in silk gloves. But Nathaniel seemed different from all of that. He talked about wanting more than the legacy he had been handed, about building something that was his own, about a future that was about meaning instead of just money. I believed him. I believed everything he said. And for 2 years, I was happy, genuinely happy, building a life with a man I thought I would spend forever with. And then I got pregnant. I found out on a Tuesday morning. A test I had taken on a whim because I was late and tired and something felt different. The 2 lines appeared, and I sat on the bathroom floor for 20 minutes just staring at them, trying to process what this meant, what it would change, what it would become. I was scared. Of course I was scared. We had never talked about children, not seriously, not in terms of timelines or plans, but I was also hopeful. Nathaniel loved me. I was sure of that. And a baby. Our baby. Maybe this would be the thing that solidified everything. That turned a relationship into a family. I decided to tell him at dinner. I would make something special, set the table properly, find the right words to share the news that would change our lives. But before I could tell Nathaniel, I was invited to dinner at his mother's house. Margaret Drake was a woman who had perfected the art of making you feel small while appearing perfectly gracious. She had never liked me. I knew that from the first moment we met. Her smile never reached her eyes when she looked at me. Her compliments always carried a subtle sting. She saw me as temporary, an obstacle, something her son would eventually grow out of, once he came to his senses. But I went to dinner anyway, because I was about to become the mother of her grandchild, and maybe, just maybe, that would change things. The meal was uncomfortable. Margaret made pointed comments about my background, my lack of family connections, the clients I worked with who were not quite at the level she considered acceptable. I smiled and nodded and tried to focus on the food, even though every bite felt like swallowing glass. After dinner, Margaret asked me to join her in the study. Just the 2 of us. Girl talk, she called it. Though there was nothing girlish about the predator who led me into that room. She closed the door behind us, walked to her desk, picked up a small envelope and held it out to me. I know about your condition, she said. Her voice was calm, cold, perfectly controlled. I have known for about a week. These things have a way of coming to my attention. I felt the blood drain from my face. I had not told anyone. I had not even seen a doctor yet. How could she possibly know? I have resources, Margaret continued, as if reading my mind, and I use them to protect my family, which is what I am going to do now. Inside that envelope is a business card for a very discreet clinic. They handle these situations with complete confidentiality, no records, no complications, no unfortunate accidents derailing anyone's future. My hand was shaking as I took the envelope. I opened it and saw exactly what she had described. A plain white card with a phone number and an address. No name, no logo, just the information needed to make her problem disappear. I do not understand, I said, even though I understood perfectly. I just needed to hear her say it. Our family does not accept accidents, Margaret said. The words were delivered without emotion, without apology. Nathaniel has a legacy to build, a future to protect, a standard to maintain. You were a pleasant distraction for a time, but this, she gestured vaguely at my stomach. This was never part of the plan. Does Nathaniel know about this conversation? I asked. My son understands his responsibilities, Margaret replied, which was not an answer, but it felt like one. It felt like confirmation that the man I loved knew exactly what his mother was doing and had sanctioned it, maybe even requested it. I left that house in a daze. I drove back to the apartment I shared with Nathaniel and sat in the darkness waiting for him to come home, waiting for him to deny it, to tell me his mother was acting alone, to promise that he wanted our baby, that he wanted me, that everything I believed about us was real. He came home late. Some business dinner, he said. He kissed my forehead and went to bed without asking about my evening, without noticing that something had shattered inside me. The next morning I watched him get ready for work, studied his face for any sign of guilt or awareness, waited for him to say something, anything. He kissed me goodbye and told me he would be home for dinner. He never mentioned the baby, never acknowledged what his mother had done, never gave me any indication that he knew or cared or wanted things to be different. And so I made my decision. I packed my things while he was at work, everything I had brought into that apartment, everything that was mine. I left nothing behind except a note that said I was sorry but I could not stay, that I hoped he would understand someday, that I would always care about him, even though caring was not enough to make this work. I did not tell him about the pregnancy. If he wanted our children eliminated, then he did not deserve to know they existed. If he had chosen his mother's approval over my heart, then he had made his choice, and I would make mine. I drove to my friend Tessa's apartment. I cried for 3 days straight. And then I started building a life that would not include Nathaniel Drake. For 7 years I believed he knew. I believed he had sanctioned what his mother did. I believed the man I loved had looked at our future children and decided they were problems to be solved rather than people to be cherished. I was wrong about all of it. But I would not learn that until the day my daughter called him for help and he told her it was a scam. Before I tell you what happened next, before I reveal the secrets that were about to explode into the light, I need to pause and speak directly to you. If you are still here right now, it means something about this story resonates with you. Maybe you have been the one who had to do everything alone. Maybe you have been the one who was dismissed when you needed help most. Maybe you were just trying to figure out if people can really change or if some betrayals are permanent. Whatever brought you here, your engagement matters to me. If you believe in the strength it takes to survive, if you believe that the truth eventually comes out, if you believe that sometimes the worst moments lead to the best transformations, then hit that like button right now. Share this story with someone who needs to know that survival is possible. And subscribe to this channel if you have not already, because I promise you what happens next in this story is going to shock you. You do not want to miss a single moment of what this man did when he finally learned the truth about those children he dismissed. Now let me tell you about the 7 years between that phone call and the day I collapsed on my kitchen floor. I built an empire from nothing. That sounds dramatic, but it is also accurate. When I left Nathaniel's apartment, I had my savings, my skills, my determination, and a pregnancy that terrified me and gave me purpose in equal measure. The first year was survival, pure survival. I moved to a cheaper apartment, took on any design job I could find, worked until my body refused to cooperate, slept when the exhaustion became dangerous, ate when I remembered to, and grew 2 human beings inside me while the world continued to demand everything I had. The twins were born in March, a difficult delivery that left me in the hospital for 5 days. Sebastian came first, quiet and observant, even in those first moments. Then Rosalie, loud and demanding from her very first breath. They were early and small and spent 2 weeks in the NICU while I sat beside their incubators and promised them that I would give them everything, that their father's absence would not define their lives, that they would never feel unwanted. Those first months of motherhood alone are a blur now. Sleepless nights that blended into sleepless days, feeding 2 babies on a schedule that left no room for anything else, learning the rhythm of their needs while my own needs became irrelevant, building a business from my living room during nap times, taking client calls while bouncing a fussy baby on my hip. Tessa saved my life during that time. My best friend, my backup, the only emergency contact I trusted. She showed up with groceries when I forgot to eat. She watched the twins when I had client meetings. She listened to me cry at 3 a.m. when the weight of everything felt impossible to carry. She never asked about the twins' father. She knew I had left someone. She knew it had been painful. But she understood that some wounds are too fresh to discuss and some questions have answers that only make things harder. The business grew slowly. 1 client became 2. 2 became 5. 5 became 20. I developed a reputation for thoughtful design, for listening to what people actually needed instead of imposing my own vision, for creating spaces that felt like home. By the time the twins were 3, I had a real office, staff, a waiting list of clients. I was making more money than I ever had before, enough to move to a better neighborhood, enough to save for their future, enough to prove that I did not need anyone to build something worth having. The twins asked about their father for the first time when they were 4. Sebastian had noticed that his friend Marcus had a daddy and wanted to know where his was. I told them a version of the truth, that their father and I had loved each other once but it had not worked out, that sometimes adults make decisions that are hard to explain, that they had me and that was enough, that they were wanted and loved and nothing was missing from their lives. They accepted this explanation with the trust that children have before the world teaches them to doubt. Sebastian nodded seriously and returned to his building blocks. Rosalie declared that she did not need a father anyway because she had me and that was better. I held them both for a long time after that conversation, grateful for their resilience, guilty for the lies I was telling, determined to protect them from the truth for as long as possible. Years passed. The business continued to grow. I expanded into commercial design, restaurants, boutique hotels, spaces that required a different kind of thinking. The twins started school, made friends, developed personalities that amazed me with their complexity. Sebastian became obsessed with how things worked. He wanted to understand buildings from the inside out, why they stood up, how they were designed, what made some structures last for centuries while others crumbled. He spent hours drawing blueprints on graph paper, explaining load distribution to anyone who would listen, already dreaming of a career that would let him build things that mattered. Rosalie became obsessed with stories. She read everything she could get her hands on. She invented elaborate fantasy worlds populated with dragons and castles and kingdoms that required complex political alliances. She wrote her own stories in notebooks she kept hidden under her bed. She told me once that she wanted to create worlds where the endings were always happy because real life had too many sad ones. They were remarkable children, smart and kind and resilient in ways that constantly surprised me. I had built them a good life, a safe life, a life where they were loved and supported and never had to wonder if they were wanted. But I was running on empty. I had been running on empty for years. The business demanded everything. Single motherhood demanded everything else. There was nothing left over for me. No time to rest, no space to recover, no margin for error. The warning signs started about 6 months before I collapsed. Dizzy spells that came out of nowhere, exhaustion that sleep could not touch, chest pains that I attributed to stress, heart palpitations that I ignored because stopping was not an option. I kept going, because the twins needed me, because the business needed me, because no one else was coming to save us, and if I stopped even for a moment, everything might fall apart. And then my body made the decision for me. One evening, while I was cooking dinner for my children, my legs gave out beneath me. My heart stuttered in my chest, and I collapsed onto my kitchen floor while my 7-year-old twins watched in horror. Sebastian called for help. Rosalie found my phone, and everything I had spent 7 years protecting came crashing into the light. I woke up in a hospital bed, fluorescent lights buzzing overhead, the steady beep of monitors keeping time with my heartbeat, the smell of antiseptic and industrial cleaning products, the particular kind of silence that only exists in medical facilities. The first face I saw was Tessa's, my best friend, my emergency backup, the woman who had driven across Atlanta in 20 minutes after the 911 operator called her. The kids. I croaked. My voice sounded wrong, weak and scratchy from whatever they had done to me while I was unconscious, in the waiting room with my mom. Tessa said immediately. Her voice was steady, but her eyes were red. She had been crying. They are okay. Scared, but okay. You, on the other hand. She stopped, took a breath. When she spoke again, her voice cracked. Vivian, the doctor said you have been running on empty for months. Severe exhaustion, stress-induced arrhythmia, borderline anemia. Your body basically shut down because you refused to give it what it needed. What were you thinking? I was thinking I have 2 children to feed and a business to run and no one else to do it for me. You could have asked for help. You could have told me it was this bad. When? I shot back. The anger in my voice surprised me. Between your 60-hour work weeks and my client deadlines. We are both drowning, Tessa. Asking you to bail me out just means we drown together. She stared at me for a long moment, something shifting in her expression from anger to grief to a complicated mixture of both. You almost died, she said quietly. Do you understand that? You almost died, and those 2 kids in the waiting room would have been orphans. Is your pride really worth that? Before I could answer, the door burst open, and 2 small bodies hurled themselves onto the bed. Sebastian and Rosalie climbed up carefully. They had obviously been warned by nurses about my condition, but their need to be close to me overrode any caution. You scared us, Sebastian said. His voice was muffled against my shoulder. He was holding on to me like he was afraid I might disappear if he let go. You cannot do that again. I will not. I promised. Even though we all knew it might be a lie. Rosalie was quiet, unnaturally quiet for a child who usually had an opinion about everything. She had pressed herself against my other side, and I could feel her heart racing through her thin sweater. Baby, I said softly, are you okay? She did not answer right away. When she finally spoke, her voice was small and tight, and nothing like the confident girl who invented dragon kingdoms. Mama, why did the emergency man say he does not know you? The question hit me like a physical blow. I had hoped, stupidly, naively, desperately hoped, that the trauma of my collapse would overshadow the phone call. that the children would forget what happened in the chaos of everything else. But Rosalie remembered everything. She always did. It is complicated, baby. Adults always say that when they do not want to explain, Sebastian observed. He had pulled back slightly to look at my face. His glasses were crooked, and there was a fierceness in his eyes that reminded me painfully of myself. What does complicated mean? Tessa caught my eye from her position by the door. She tilted her head slightly. A question. Do you want me to take them? Give you time. I shook my head. They deserved the truth, or at least as much of it as they could understand. The emergency man, I said slowly, is someone I used to know a long time ago. Before you were born, he was supposed to be important, but he made a choice that meant he could not be in our lives. What choice? Rosalie pressed. He chose himself. Over us, over you. The silence that followed was heavy with understanding that neither child should have been capable of. Sebastian nodded slowly, processing the information with his usual analytical approach. Rosalie's face hardened into something that looked disturbingly like hatred. He hung up on me, she said. The words came out flat, cold. I was crying and scared and begging for help, and he said it was a scam and hung up. I know, baby. I know. And I am so sorry that happened to you. Is he our dad? The question came from Sebastian, direct and unflinching, the way he approached everything. I closed my eyes for a moment. This was the conversation I had been dreading for 7 years. The truth I had been protecting them from since the day they were born, but there was no more protecting them now. The secret had been exposed. The only choice left was how much of it to reveal. Yes, I said, he is your biological father, but he did not know you existed. I left before you were born, and I never told him about you. Why not? Rosalie demanded. Why did you keep us secret? Because I believed he did not want you. Because his mother told me to get rid of you. Because he never came after me, and I thought that meant he agreed with her. I was trying to protect you from people who did not value you. But now he knows, Sebastian said. He knows we are real because Rosalie told him. Yes, now he knows. The twins exchanged a look. That silent communication they had developed from sharing a womb and a childhood. When they turned back to me, their expressions were identical. Resolute, determined. We do not need him. Sebastian declared. He made his choice when he hung up on Rosalie. We do not want him. He is not a good person, Rosalie added. Good people do not hang up on scared children. Good people help. The certainty in their voices broke my heart and mended it at the same time. They were protecting each other, protecting me, refusing to let someone who had hurt them have any power over their feelings. You are right. I told them, you do not need him. You have me and Aunt Tessa and each other. That is more than enough. That is everything. They stayed in my hospital bed for the rest of the afternoon. Sebastian reading a book about famous bridges while leaning against my shoulder. Rosalie drawing dragons in a notebook a nurse had given her. Both of them refusing to be more than arm's length away from me. And I lay there thinking about Nathaniel Drake, wondering if he would investigate that phone call, wondering if he would try to find us, wondering what I would do if he showed up demanding access to the children he had dismissed. I decided I would cross that bridge when I came to it. For now, the only thing that mattered was recovery, getting strong enough to go home, being there for my children, rebuilding the walls that had protected us for 7 years. I had no idea those walls were about to come crashing down. 3 weeks after my collapse, I was back on my feet, carefully, cautiously, with strict orders from my doctor and constant monitoring from Tessa. I had hired a part-time assistant for my design business, something I had resisted for years out of financial anxiety and control issues. I had started delegating, started sleeping actual hours instead of napping between tasks, started admitting that I could not do everything alone. The twins had adapted with the resilience that children possess. They returned to their routines of school and homework and the elaborate fantasy games they invented together. Sebastian became slightly more protective, hovering near me when I worked late, asking if I had eaten, if I had taken my medication, if I was feeling okay. Rosalie became slightly more suspicious, watching everyone we encountered with new wariness, asking questions about people she had never questioned before, as if the man on the phone had taught her that danger could hide in unexpected places. We did not talk about the phone call, not directly, But sometimes I caught Rosalie staring at my phone with an expression that was equal parts curiosity and contempt. On a Thursday afternoon in October, my phone rang with a number I did not recognize. I almost let it go to voicemail. That was my policy with unknown callers. But something made me answer. Miss Holloway, a woman's voice, professional and brisk. This is Patricia Chen, executive assistant to Nathaniel Drake. Mr. Drake would like to schedule a meeting with you at your earliest convenience. My grip tightened on the phone. Every muscle in my body went rigid. I am sorry, I said, keeping my voice steady through sheer force of will. I think you have the wrong person. I do not know any Nathaniel Drake. The lie tasted bitter on my tongue. But it was his lie first. He had denied knowing me. He had denied knowing our children. Fair was fair. I understand your reluctance, Patricia continued, unfazed by my denial. However, Mr. Drake has recently become aware of certain circumstances that require a conversation. He is prepared to fly to Atlanta this weekend. Something in my chest cracked, rage flooding through the fracture. He refused to help when I was unconscious on my kitchen floor, I said, my voice no longer steady. My 7-year-old daughter called him in a panic, and he told her it was a scam. So with all due respect, Miss Chen, you can tell Mr. Drake exactly where he can put his scheduled meeting. I hung up before she could respond. The phone rang again immediately. Again, and again. By the 5th call, I blocked the number. By the 10th call from a different number, I turned off my phone entirely. That night, after the twins were asleep, I sat in my home office and stared at the wall. He knew. After 7 years of silence, Nathaniel Drake knew about his children. And he was trying to make contact. The question was what I was going to do about it. Before I continue with what happened next, before I tell you about the day Nathaniel Drake showed up at my door and the confrontation that changed everything, I need to pause and speak to you again. We are at a turning point in this story. Vivian has spent 7 years believing one thing about the man who fathered her children. She has built her entire life around protecting them from someone she thought wanted them eliminated. But the truth is about to get complicated. The man she believed was a monster is about to reveal that he was also a victim. And the real enemy is someone she never suspected. If you are invested in this story, if you want to know what happens when Nathaniel finally comes face to face with the children he never knew existed, if you believe that sometimes the truth is messier than the lies we tell ourselves, then I need you to do something for me. Hit that like button. Let me know this story matters to you. Share this video with someone who has ever had to question everything they believed about a person from their past. Drop a comment telling me what you think Vivian should do. Should she hear Nathaniel out? Or should she protect her children from a man who already proved he cannot be trusted? And subscribe to this channel if you have not already. Because, trust me, what happens next is going to change everything you think you know about this story. Now let me tell you about the Saturday morning when Nathaniel Drake appeared at my door. Saturday morning brought the kind of perfect autumn weather that made Atlanta feel almost forgivable. The sky was impossibly blue. The leaves on the trees had turned shades of gold and crimson that looked like they belonged in a painting. The air was crisp without being cold, the kind of day that makes you believe good things are possible. I was in the backyard with the twins. We had started raking leaves into piles about an hour earlier, but the task had quickly devolved into chaos. Every pile I created was immediately destroyed by 2 7-year-olds who could not resist the urge to dive into them. "Mama, look," Rosalie shouted, launching herself into a mountain of red and gold leaves. "I'm a dragon emerging from my treasure." Sebastian stood at the edge of the pile, more interested in analyzing the structural integrity of the leaf mountain than in destroying it. "If you arrange them in a dome shape, they hold together better," he observed, "like an igloo but with leaves." "That is boring," Rosalie countered, throwing a handful of leaves at her brother. "The point is to jump in them, not to build things. Everything is better when you build it properly." I watched them with a smile. These moments were what I had sacrificed everything for. The ordinary magic of childhood, the safety of a backyard on a Saturday morning, the luxury of having nothing more important to do than argue about the proper way to enjoy autumn leaves. The doorbell rang. "I will get it," Rosalie shouted, already sprinting toward the house before I could stop her. "Rosalie, wait." I called after her, but she was gone, disappeared through the back door with the speed that only children possess. I followed at a more measured pace. My heart was still something I had to monitor carefully. No sudden movements. No unnecessary stress. Doctor's orders. I arrived at the front door to find it already open. Rosalie was standing in the entryway. Her body had gone completely still, and a man in a coat that probably cost more than my monthly mortgage payment was staring down at her with an expression of complete shock. Nathaniel Drake, 7 years had changed him. There was silver threading through his dark hair now, lines around his eyes that had not been there before. He looked older, more weathered, like life had happened to him in ways that left visible marks. But he was still devastatingly handsome, still carrying himself with the unconscious confidence of someone who had never been told no, still capable of making a room feel smaller just by standing in it. "You look just like her," he breathed, his eyes fixed on Rosalie, exactly like her. Rosalie did not move, did not speak. She just stared at this stranger who had appeared at our door, this man she had never seen before, but somehow recognized on an instinctual level. "Who are you?" she finally demanded, her voice carrying the suspicious edge she had developed since the phone call. "Rosalie, go inside," I said. My voice was calm, cold, the voice I used when negotiations with difficult clients turned hostile. "Find your brother. Stay in the living room until I come get you." "But Mama," now, she obeyed, but not before shooting Nathaniel a look of pure contempt that he absolutely deserved. The door closed behind her with a deliberate slam that said more than words ever could. Once we were alone, I stepped onto the porch, pulling the door shut behind me to ensure privacy. The morning air suddenly felt colder. The beautiful day suddenly felt threatening. "You have 30 seconds to explain why you are at my house before I call the police." "I did not know," Nathaniel said immediately. His voice was different than I remembered, less arrogant, more desperate. "Vivian, I swear to you, I did not know they existed. You knew I was pregnant when I left." The words came out before I could stop them. 7 years of silence breaking like a dam. 7 years of anger and grief and betrayal flooding through the crack. "No, I." He stopped, confusion clouding his features. "What are you talking about? You left a note saying you had found someone else, that you had been seeing him the whole time we were together." My mother showed me the letter. The words did not make sense. They rattled around in my brain like loose coins, refusing to settle into any pattern I could recognize. "I never wrote any letter," I said slowly. "I left because your mother made it very clear that my pregnancy was a problem to be eliminated. She gave me a business card for a clinic. She told me your family did not accept accidents." Nathaniel's face went pale, the color draining from his skin like someone had pulled a plug. "She told you to." He could not finish the sentence. "And you thought I knew, that I wanted. You never called. You never came after me. What was I supposed to think? Because I believed the letter." His voice rose, then dropped as he visibly fought for control. "I believed you had left me for someone else. I spent 2 years trying to get over you," my mother said. He stopped again, something shifting in his expression, realization dawning like a terrible sunrise. "My mother," he repeated. "Of course. God, she has been controlling my life since I was born, and I never saw it. I wanted to feel vindicated. I wanted this revelation to change everything, to rewrite 7 years of struggle and loneliness, to transform the villain of my story into a fellow victim. But the anger was still there, burning beneath the confusion, compounded now by the memory of that phone call. "Nathaniel, even if what you are saying is true," I said carefully, "it does not explain why you hung up on Rosalie. She was terrified. I was unconscious on the floor, and you told her it was a scam." The accusation landed like a physical blow. I watched him flinch, watched something crack behind his eyes. "I get dozens of calls like that every week," he said, his voice hollow. "People trying to extract money, claiming relationships that do not exist. I did not know. I could not have known. You did not even try to find out. You dismissed a crying child because it was inconvenient." He did not defend himself, did not make excuses, did not try to minimize what he had done. "You are right," he admitted. "I should have listened. I should have asked questions instead of assuming. I have been so protected from manipulation that I have become incapable of recognizing genuine need." He paused, his eyes meeting mine with an intensity that made my chest tight. Vivian, I know I do not deserve anything from you. But please let me explain. Let me try to make this right. I should have said no. I should have told him to leave. I should have protected myself and my children from a man who had already proven he could not be trusted. But there was something in his voice that I had not heard before. Something that sounded almost like brokenness. And some part of me, some stupid hopeful part that I had tried so hard to kill, wanted to understand how we had ended up here. We talked for 3 hours. First on the porch, where I could keep the door in sight. Then in the living room, where I could watch the twins through the window as they returned to their leaf piles in the backyard. He told me everything about his mother's systematic campaign to end our relationship, the calls she intercepted, the messages she deleted, the letters she fabricated in my handwriting, the lies she told him about my supposed affair, the years he spent believing I had betrayed him with another man. He told me about the life he had lived since I left, the relationships that never lasted more than 6 months, the emptiness that success could not fill, the nagging feeling that something was missing even when he had everything money could buy. She told me you were pregnant, he said at one point, his voice breaking on the words. But she said it was not mine, that you had been sleeping with someone else and the timing proved a baby could not be mine. I believed her because I was already devastated, and she gave me a reason to hate you instead of missing you. And I told him my story, the terror of pregnancy alone, the first years of financial struggle, the slow climb to stability, the pride of building something without help, the isolation of needing no one. I told him about the twins, their personalities, their dreams, the way Sebastian could spend hours explaining structural engineering to anyone who would listen, the way Rosalie invented worlds where the endings were always happy because real life had too many sad ones. I told him about the phone call, what it had done to Rosalie, the trust it had destroyed, the walls it had reinforced. By the time I finished talking, the afternoon sun was starting to fade. The twins had come inside and been sent to their rooms with tablets and instructions to stay put until I called them. We were alone in my living room, two people who had lost each other, learning how we had been lost. I want to meet them, Nathaniel said finally. Properly, not as an emergency call or an ambush. I want them to know who I am. That is not my decision to make alone. They are 7, but they are smart. They will have opinions. Then ask them. Please. I called the twins into the living room. They sat on either side of me on the couch, forming a united front against the stranger who had invaded their home. This is Nathaniel, I said carefully. He is the man from the phone, the emergency contact. Both twins stiffened. Rosalie's eyes narrowed into slits of pure hostility. Sebastian's face went carefully blank, the analytical mask he wore when he was processing information he did not trust. He hung up on Rosalie. Sebastian stated, his voice flat. Final, I know. And he is here to explain why. Nathaniel leaned forward, meeting the children's eyes with complete seriousness, not talking down to them, not trying to charm them, just treating them like the intelligent people they were. I made a terrible mistake. He said, when your sister called, I did not listen. I assumed she was someone trying to trick me, and I dismissed her without asking questions. That was wrong. Worse than wrong. It was cruel even though I did not mean it to be. You said you did not know our mama, Rosalie accused, her voice sharp as broken glass. I did not know you existed. Your mother and I had a misunderstanding 7 years ago. People who should have been honest lied to both of us. I only found out about you last week when my assistant tracked down the phone number that called me. So you are our dad? Sebastian asked directly. No hesitation, no softening. Biologically, yes. In every way that actually matters, I am a stranger. I have not been here for any of the important moments. I have not helped with homework or comforted you when you were scared or watched you grow. I am just someone who shares your DNA. Then why are you here? Rosalie demanded. Because I want to change that, not to replace anything your mother has built. She has done an incredible job, and you are both remarkable people because of her. But if you will let me, I would like to be part of your lives going forward. The twins exchanged a look, that silent communication they had perfected through years of shared existence. When they turned back to Nathaniel, their expressions were identical. Skeptical, guarded, but not entirely closed. We have to think about it, Sebastian announced, speaking for both of them as he often did. That is more than fair. Nathaniel agreed. Take all the time you need. He stood to leave, pausing at the door to look at me one more time. Vivian, I know I have years of trust to rebuild. I know one conversation does not erase 7 years of absence, but I want you to know I am serious about this, about them. I am not going anywhere. Time will tell, I replied, non-committal, but not dismissive. After he left, the twins were quiet for a long time. Finally, Rosalie spoke. I do not like him. I know, baby. But she hesitated, struggling with something. He did not make excuses. When I asked why he hung up on me, he just said he was wrong. He did not try to make it sound okay. Sebastian nodded slowly. That is something, he admitted. Most adults try to explain why the bad thing they did was actually not that bad. He did not do that. What do you want to do? I asked them. Do you want to see him again, or do you want me to tell him to stay away? Another silent communication between the twins. Another shared decision made without words. We want to think about it, Sebastian repeated. Can we have some time? Of course, baby. All the time you need. That night, after the twins were asleep, I sat in my home office staring at nothing. My phone buzzed with a text from a number I did not recognize, but immediately knew. Thank you for today. Thank you for telling them the truth and letting me try to explain. I meant everything I said. I will prove it with actions, not just words. I stared at the message for a long time. Then I typed back a response. Actions, not words. We will see. Short, professional, giving nothing away about the complicated tangle of emotions I was working very hard not to examine too closely. 1 week later, Nathaniel called me with news that made everything more complicated. I confronted my mother, he said without preamble. I went to her house and I told her I knew what she did. I gave her every opportunity to deny it or explain it or apologize. And she did not deny it. She justified it, said she was protecting the family legacy, protecting me from a girl who came from nothing and would have dragged me down. I absorbed this silently, waiting for him to continue. She said the business card was just a suggestion, that you made your own choice to leave, like she had nothing to do with it, like destroying our relationship was a minor inconvenience rather than the worst thing she has ever done. What did you say? I told her we were done, completely. She threatened to cut me off from the company, from the inheritance, from everything the family has built. And I told her she could keep it, all of it. I would rather have nothing and have my children than have everything and lose them. The words hit me harder than I expected. Nathaniel had always been bound to his family, to their expectations, to the legacy that had been placed on his shoulders since birth. Walking away from that, choosing us over them, it meant something. That is a big decision, I said carefully. It is the only decision, he replied. I spent 7 years believing lies my mother told me. I lost you. I lost my children. I am not going to lose anything else because I am too weak to stand up to her. Before we continue with what happened next, before I tell you how Nathaniel began the slow, painful work of earning trust he had never deserved, I need to pause and speak to you one more time. This story is not just entertainment. It is about the hardest question any of us ever face. Can people really change? Are second chances earned or given? Is forgiveness a gift to others or to ourselves? If these questions matter to you, if you believe in the possibility of redemption, show me by hitting that like button right now. Share this with someone who is wrestling with whether to give someone another chance. Subscribe so you do not miss how this story ends, because I promise you the conclusion is not what you expect. Now back to Nathaniel's first real attempt at fatherhood. He started with letters, real paper letters, handwritten in ink, sent through the mail like people used to do before everything became digital and disposable. One for each twin, arriving every few days. He wrote about his life, his work, the things he was interested in, the mistakes he had made, and what he was learning from them. He asked questions about their lives, their interests, their dreams. He did not try to buy their affection or overwhelm them with promises. He just offered information, access to who he was, the opportunity to know him if they chose to. Rosalie's first letter back was suspicious, testing. She asked pointed questions designed to catch him in lies. Where were you when we were born? What do you do all day? Do you have other children we do not know about? Why should we believe anything you say? Nathaniel answered every question honestly, even when the answers made him look bad. even when the truth was unflattering. He did not try to present a perfect version of himself. He just told her the truth and let her decide what to do with it. Sebastian's response was more analytical. He treated the correspondence like a research project, gathering data about this stranger who claimed to be his father. He asked about family medical history, about genetic predispositions, about the Drake family tree and what characteristics might have been passed down. But he also asked about architecture. He had learned somehow that Nathaniel had studied structural engineering in college before switching to business. And suddenly the letters were filled with questions about load-bearing walls and foundation stress distribution and the physics of tall buildings. Nathaniel answered all of it, in detail, with diagrams and explanations that treated Sebastian's 7-year-old curiosity as something worth taking seriously. Small gestures followed the letters. A donation to the library at Rosalie's school, made in her name, funding a collection of fantasy novels and books about dragons and mythical creatures. She came home one day to tell me that the librarian had shown her a special section just for her, books she could recommend to other students, her own personal kingdom of stories. Sebastian received a connection to an architectural firm in Atlanta, one that offered summer programs for young people interested in building design. The application arrived in the mail with a personal note from the program director explaining that a generous donor had covered all costs, including transportation. He never signed his name to these gifts, never demanded credit or gratitude, just quietly made things happen, investing in their interests, showing up in ways that mattered without expecting anything in return. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, the walls began to crack. 3 months after that first confrontation at my door, the twins agreed to meet Nathaniel for lunch. A real meeting, not a crisis, not an ambush. Just 3 people sitting at a table trying to figure out if they could become a family. I accompanied them, of course. I was not ready to leave them alone with him. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But I stayed on the periphery, letting the children lead the conversation, watching to see who Nathaniel would be when he was not performing for me. He was patient, more patient than I had ever seen him. He listened when Sebastian explained the difference between suspension bridges and cantilever bridges. He asked follow-up questions that proved he was actually paying attention. He did not check his phone or look at his watch, or give any indication that he had somewhere more important to be. Rosalie tested him constantly, asking unexpected questions designed to catch him off guard. Do you have a girlfriend? Will someone take you away from us again? What happens if your mother wants you back? Why should we believe you will stay? He answered every question honestly. No, I do not have a girlfriend. No one will take me away. My mother is no longer part of my life, and you should not believe me. You should watch me, judge me by what I do over time, not by what I promised today. It was exactly the right answer, and I could see Rosalie registering that, filing it away, the first small crack in her armor of distrust. At the end of the meal, Sebastian said something that changed everything. You can call us again, he told Nathaniel. His voice was careful, measured, still testing. Maybe next weekend. If you want. I want, Nathaniel replied. Very much. So began the long, slow work of building something from nothing. Months passed. Weekly video calls became natural, something the twins looked forward to, rather than endured. Monthly visits became anticipated. Nathaniel flying to Atlanta, taking them to museums and parks and architectural sites that Sebastian had researched in advance. The integration happened gradually. Nathaniel showing up for school plays and parent-teacher conferences, coaching Sebastian's Little League team despite knowing nothing about baseball beyond the basic rules, attending Rosalie's dance recital, learning to braid her hair through YouTube tutorials and patient practice. He became part of the fabric of their daily lives, not just a visitor but a presence, not just a name in their history but a person in their present. And I watched it all unfold, carefully, critically, looking for cracks in the foundation, waiting for the moment when the mask would slip and the real Nathaniel would appear. But the cracks never came. 8 months after his first appearance at my door, Nathaniel made an announcement during one of his Denver visits. We were having dinner at my house, something that had become routine. Nathaniel cooking while I supervised homework. Everyone pretending this was completely normal when all of us knew it was extraordinary. I have some news, he said as we sat down to eat. I have been restructuring my company, delegating more responsibilities to my executive team, and I have decided to open an Atlanta office. The twins erupted into cheers, forks clattering against plates, chairs pushed back so they could jump up and down with excitement. I felt my heart rate increase, though whether from excitement or panic I could not quite determine. "That is a big change," I said carefully. "It is the right change," Nathaniel replied, his eyes meeting mine across the table. "I have been thinking about it since that first day at your door. My company can function without me micromanaging every decision. But Sebastian and Rosalie, they are only young once. I do not want to miss any more of their lives than I already have." "What about your life in New York?" I asked. "Your friends, your routine, everything you have built there." "I did not have much of a life in New York," he admitted. "Just work. The few friends I had were really business associates who have mostly fallen away since I started traveling here so much. There is nothing tying me to New York except inertia and habit. Here I have my children. That is everything." It was exactly the right answer, exactly what I had hoped to hear. And it terrified me completely, because if Nathaniel relocated to Atlanta, if he became a permanent fixture in our daily lives, the careful distance I had maintained would become impossible. I would have to actually deal with my feelings instead of compartmentalizing them into monthly visits that were easy to control. "When would this happen?" I asked. "I am looking at properties now, hoping to be settled within 2 months. I wanted to tell you first, make sure it was okay. You do not need my permission to move to Atlanta," I pointed out. "It is a free country. No, but I need you to be comfortable with it. If this is too much, too fast, I can slow down the timeline." I looked at the twins, who were watching this exchange with barely contained excitement. I looked at Nathaniel, who had spent 8 months proving himself reliable and consistent. I looked at the life I had built. That suddenly felt less like protection and more like limitation. "Do it," I said. "Move here. Be close to them. They deserve that." What I did not say, what I barely admitted to myself, was that maybe I deserved it too. Maybe I deserved to see what happened when someone who had hurt me actually did the work to become better. Maybe I deserved the possibility of something more than mere contentment. That night after Nathaniel left and the twins were asleep, I sat in my kitchen drinking tea and staring at nothing. Tessa found me there 20 minutes later, still holding the same cup, lost in thought. "You are thinking very loudly," she observed, pouring herself tea and settling at the kitchen table across from me. "Want to share, or should I just guess?" "He is moving here," I said, opening an Atlanta office. "He will be here 3 weeks out of every month." "And how do you feel about that?" "I do not know," I admitted, finally sitting down across from her. Terrified, hopeful, both simultaneously. He has been everything I hoped he would be as a father. Consistent, present, genuinely engaged. The twins adore him. This should be good news, but it means I cannot keep him at arm's length anymore. I cannot pretend this is just about Keo parenting when he's going to be a permanent fixture in our daily lives. I am going to have to actually examine what I feel about him beyond just whether he is good for the children. "And what do you feel about him?" Tessa asked gently. I was quiet for a long moment, staring into my tea like it held answers. "I do not hate him anymore," I finally said. "I did for a long time, but watching him with Sebastian and Rosalie, seeing how he has changed, how he prioritizes them over everything else, it is hard to maintain hatred in the face of genuine transformation." "That is not what I asked." "I know what you asked," I replied. "I'm just not ready to answer it honestly." "Because the answer scares you. Because the answer means I might have to risk something I swore I would never risk again. My heart, my trust, my belief that people can choose me and stay chosen. He broke all of that 7 years ago. What if he breaks it again? What if he does not?" Tessa countered. "What if he has actually become the man you needed him to be back then? Are you going to punish him forever for who he was, or give him credit for who he has become?" It was the question I had been avoiding for months. I had been so focused on protecting myself and the twins that I had not considered what I might be protecting myself from. Not just pain, but possibility. "I do not know if I can do it," I whispered. "I do not know if I can be that vulnerable again." "You do not have to decide tonight," Tessa said, "but eventually you will have to decide something. Living in this limbo, not moving forward, not letting go, that is just another kind of prison. You survived what he did to you. You built an empire from nothing. You raised 2 incredible children alone. You are strong enough to risk your heart again if you choose to. The question is whether you are brave enough. The words settled over me like a challenge. I had thought surviving was the brave part, but maybe staying safe was actually the coward's choice. Maybe real courage meant risking pain for the possibility of something better than mere contentment. 6 weeks later, Nathaniel closed on a house in a neighborhood 10 minutes from mine. A beautiful craftsman-style home with a wraparound porch and a backyard perfect for children. He invited us over for a walkthrough before he moved in, wanting the twins to feel comfortable in what would become their second home. "This will be your room when you stay over," he told Sebastian, showing him a bedroom with built-in bookshelves and a drafting desk positioned to catch the morning light. "I thought you could use it for your architecture projects." Sebastian's eyes went wide, his usually composed expression cracking into something that looked almost like wonder. "This is mine, really yours. We will decorate it however you want." Rosalie's room was painted lavender, with space for a growing dragon collection and a window seat perfect for reading and dreaming. "I love it," she breathed, her voice filled with an awe she was too young to hide. "Can we stay tonight?" "Not tonight," I interjected gently. "Your dad does not even have furniture yet." But soon, they explored the rest of the house together. A home office where Nathaniel would work. A modern kitchen that opened to a backyard with room to run and play. A living room with space for family movie nights. It was a home designed for the life Nathaniel was building, not the life he had left behind. After the twins ran outside to explore the backyard, Nathaniel and I stood alone in the kitchen. The space between us charged with something neither of us was quite ready to name. "This is really happening," I said. "You are really here, in Atlanta, building a life close to them. I told you I would." Nathaniel replied, "I know it took months to prove it, but I meant every word. They are my priority. This is where I need to be." I looked at him, really looked, trying to see past my fear and anger to the person standing in front of me. "Can I ask you something?" I said, my voice barely above a whisper. "Not as the mother of your children, just as me. Anything. Why? Why did you choose her 7 years ago? I have never understood it. We were good together. We had plans. And then your mother appeared with lies and suddenly none of it mattered. I need to understand what I was not." Nathaniel's face crumpled with old pain, 7 years of it pressing to the surface. "You were not anything except exactly who you needed to be. The problem was not you, Vivian. It was me. I was a coward." The word hung in the air between us. "Unexpected, undefended. You challenged me to be better," he continued, "to be more authentic, to examine the parts of myself I had been avoiding. My mother offered me the opposite, a way to stay exactly as I was. She made it easy to believe the worst about you, because believing the truth would have required me to fight, to stand up to her, to choose you over everything I had been raised to value. And now I have done the work, not for you. I do not have the right to expect anything from you, but for them, for myself, because I finally understood that easy is not the same as good. That comfort is not the same as connection, that the life I was living was hollow no matter how successful it looked from the outside. I felt tears threatening, blinked them back. I am scared, I admitted, of letting you in, of trusting you with more than just co-parenting, of believing this version of you is real and permanent. I am scared too," Nathaniel confessed. "Scared I will mess this up somehow. Scared I do not deserve the chance you have already given me. Scared that 8 months of proving myself will not be enough to overcome 7 years of betrayal." He moved slightly closer, not touching, just reducing the distance. "But Vivian, I am here. I moved my entire life to be close to our children. I restructured my company, cut off my mother completely, found a therapist who is helping me understand why I spent so long being someone I did not want to be. I did all of that whether you ever forgave me or not, because it was the right thing to do." He paused, his eyes searching my face. "But if you are asking whether I would like more than just co-parenting, whether I would like the chance to show you I can be the partner you deserved back then, the answer is yes. Absolutely yes." The honesty hung between us, raw and vulnerable and terrifying. I could walk away right now, maintain my boundaries, keep my heart safe behind the walls I had spent 7 years building. Or I could take the terrifying step into possibility, into the risk that someone who had hurt me had actually learned how to love me better. I need time, I said finally. More time to see if this stability holds. To trust that you are not going to wake up one day and decide Atlanta is boring and the twins are too much work and disappear back to New York. To believe that you have actually changed and this is not just an extended performance. Take all the time you need. Nathaniel said, I am not going anywhere. That became his constant refrain over the months that followed. As he settled into Atlanta life, as he showed up for every school event and every weekend adventure and every ordinary moment that turned out to be extraordinary, he learned the names of the twins' friends, memorized their favorite foods, figured out that Sebastian needed quiet time after school and Rosalie needed to talk through everything that happened during the day. He did not try to replace what I had built. He just added to it, becoming part of a family that had existed perfectly well without him, earning his place one day at a time. And somewhere along the way, without my permission or approval, my walls began to come down. It started with small things. Catching myself smiling at something he said during a video call with the twins, looking forward to his visits not just for the children, but because his presence had become comfortable, familiar, something I did not have to guard against anymore. Then bigger things, agreeing to have dinner with him alone while Tessa watched the twins, talking for hours about everything and nothing, discovering that the man he had become was someone I actually liked, not just tolerated, not just accepted. Genuinely liked. He listened when I talked, remembered details and asked follow-up questions, made me feel seen in a way I had forgotten was possible. And slowly I began to consider whether the walls that had protected me had become the very things that were holding me prisoner. One evening, nearly a year after Nathaniel first appeared at my door, we sat on his porch after the twins had gone to bed. The night was warm. The stars were bright. The silence between us was comfortable instead of tense. I have been thinking, I said, about what you said months ago, about wanting more than just co-parenting. Nathaniel went very still beside me, waiting, not pushing. I think maybe I am ready to try. I continued, not jumping into anything, not rushing, but just trying to see if there is something there, beyond shared children and old history, to see if we can build something new that does not carry all the weight of what broke us before. The smile that spread across his face was incandescent, transforming him into someone who looked almost like the man I had fallen in love with years ago, but better, more real, really. But Nathaniel, I need you to understand something. I am not the same person I was 7 years ago. I am harder, more guarded, less willing to ignore red flags or accept less than I deserve. If we do this and you hurt me again, there will not be another chance. Not ever. I understand, he said seriously. And I promise you I will not waste this opportunity. I spent 7 years learning to be someone worthy of you. I am not going to throw that away. He moved closer, carefully, asking permission with his eyes before taking my hand. Can I take you to dinner? He asked. Just us. A real date, where we figure out who we are now instead of who we were. I would like that. I replied, and meant it. We are approaching the end of this journey. The moment where everything comes together or falls apart. Before I tell you what happened next, I need you to do something for me. If you have made it this far, if you are invested in whether Vivian can learn to trust again, if you are hoping Nathaniel has truly changed, if you believe that broken things can be rebuilt, I need you to show me. Hit that like button. Drop a comment telling me what you think should happen. Share this story with someone who believes in second chances. Subscribe if you want more stories about real love, not the fairy tale kind, but the kind that is earned through patience and presence and the daily choice to show up. Now let me tell you how this ends. Our first date happened 2 weeks later. Tessa stayed with the twins who were thrilled at the idea of their parents going out like grown-ups. As Rosalie put it, Nathaniel took me to a quiet restaurant, one with dim lighting and soft music and tables spaced far enough apart for private conversation. We talked for 3 hours, about who we had become in our years apart, about what we wanted from life now that we had both achieved the success we had been chasing, about our fears and hopes and the work of building trust from rubble. It felt different than it had 7 years ago, more grounded, less desperate. We were not two young people trying to prove something to the world. We were two adults who had survived heartbreak and built separate lives, and were now choosing carefully and intentionally to see if those lives might fit together. There were more dates after that, dinners and walks and long conversations on his porch after the twins were asleep. We learned each other again, discovering that the people we had become were more compatible than the people we had been. We took things slowly, building something new, instead of trying to recreate what we had lost, learning to trust each other through small moments that accumulated into something larger. And the twins, our beautiful, remarkable children, they watched all of this unfold with the sharp eyes of children who had learned to pay attention. "Are you and Dad together now?" Rosalie asked one evening after Nathaniel had left following a family dinner. "We are figuring things out," I told her honestly, "taking our time, seeing if we can build something that works for everyone." "I think it is good," Sebastian offered. "He makes you smile. You did not used to smile as much." The observation hit me harder than I expected. I had been so focused on surviving, on providing, on being strong, I had forgotten how to be happy. The ending came not with fireworks or grand gestures, but with quiet daily choices. Nathaniel showing up for Sunday dinners, me inviting him to foundation events as my partner rather than just the twins' father. Late-night conversations after the children were asleep, talking about dreams and fears and the work of building trust from nothing. A year after that first meeting in New York, we stood together at a community gala watching Sebastian explain the structural engineering of the venue to a group of confused but charmed adults. Rosalie had organized a game for the younger children that involved dragons and kingdoms and political alliances that required a flowchart to understand. Nathaniel's arm was around my waist, casual and comfortable, like it belonged there. "We did okay," he said quietly. "Did we not?" "We did better than okay," I replied. "We did real, messy and imperfect and absolutely real. We turned the worst thing into something better." "I love you," he said, simple and true. "I love you too," I replied. Again, still, earned through every difficult moment and every choice to stay. The story did not end there. Real stories never truly end. They continue, evolve, face new challenges and discover new joys. There were still hard days, still old wounds that surfaced unexpectedly, still the work of building something that would last. But we faced all of it together, rebuilding trust, choosing each other daily, proving that second chances were real when both people were willing to change. The man who hung up on my daughter's emergency call became the father who never missed a school play, a soccer game, a bedtime story. The billionaire who dismissed a crying child became the dad who learned to braid hair through YouTube tutorials, who coached Little League despite not knowing the rules, who showed up consistently even when it was inconvenient. The woman who built walls so high no one could climb them learned to let them down, one brick at a time, discovering that vulnerability was not weakness, that trusting again was not foolishness, that the past did not have to define the future. And the children, the twins who accidentally called their biological father and were rejected. They gained something they had never asked for and did not know they needed. A father who had failed them spectacularly and then did the work to become worthy of their love. People can change, not easily, not quickly, not without cost, but they can change if they are willing to do the work and keep doing it even when it is hard. And sometimes, the person who hurts you most becomes the person who loves you best. That is not a fairy tale. That is just life, messy and complicated and absolutely worth fighting for. And that is where this story ends, not with a perfect ending, but with a real one. A family built not from circumstance but from choice. A love not given but earned. A future not promised but worked for every single day. If this story moved you, if you believe in the power of second chances, in the possibility of redemption, in the strength it takes to trust again, I need you to do something right now. Hit that like button. Let me know this story mattered. Share this video with someone who needs to hear that survival is possible, that people can change, that the worst moments do not have to define us forever. Drop a comment below. Do you believe in second chances? Have you ever had to decide whether to let someone back in after they hurt you? I want to hear your story. And if you have not subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? Join the Mr. Dalton Storyhouse family. We tell the truth about love and loss and the messy, beautiful work of building something that lasts. Click that subscribe button. Hit the notification bell so you never miss a story. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. Thank you for believing in stories that matter. Until next time, remember, every ending is just another beginning in disguise.